I think there's things with our parents we just naturally carry.
I'm very excited to be speaking with Ian Bawa, the writer director of The Best, one of the shorts premiering at the Toronto International Film Festival this year. Ian, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man, it's great.
Honestly, I'm really looking forward to this conversation. This film is so much fun. It's fast. It's like it's funny, but it's also serious, and there's these. It's a really interesting tension. Where did the idea come from?
The short version, um, I think I just had this. For one, my dad passed away back in 2020, and I made a short film before, like a few months before he passed away, called Strong Son, which is about a bodybuilder and his dad at the gym. And the dad is old VO, basically saying how proud he is of his strong son, but then kind of shitting on him. And at the end of the movie, you find out the dad is happy his son's strong because his dad's old and weak, and the son can take care of him. It was a very heartfelt 3 minute Super 8 film I made, went to TIFF, did really well the festival circuit. I'm actually making a feature out of it right now. That we're going to camera like
That's
next year.
cool.
Yeah. So the best kind of came from this other side of the idea of what this relationship could have been, and or what it was in reality. So it's kind of a pseudo sequel, but then also the idea of just like both my parents have passed away. I think funerals are weird and hard, and it was during COVID. My dad passed away, so like only me and my sisters could be in the room, and it was like they filmed it on a small little iPhone, so the world could see. Like my friends could come, and I remember just like they give you the footage after, and I remember standing up there for a while, not saying anything, but I thought it was like a minute. But when I have the actual footage. I was actually standing there for like 3 minutes, breathing into the mic,
Mm.
not saying anything. And I think in my head, I was just like finding whatever. I didn't know what the hell is. I actually started saying at one point, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. Like I don't remember
Yeah.
doing it. I think there's just things you pump yourself up before the hard thing, and then you still crash and burn, and you try to remind yourself why you're strong sometimes, or why you're the best, or why you're surviving. And this is like a toxic character that's doing that. So yeah, it was an experiment. I didn't know if it actually worked, that you could start off on a toxic character and then sympathize with them 3 minutes later. Apparently it works. So
Well, you sort of take the air out of him at the same time, right? Like you like the first, couple of minutes of the film, he's just inflating the balloon, like just
mhm.
inflating the balloon, and then he gets up to the microphone, and I'm actually hearing you say that it really grounds that moment with where he just has no words, and he's not the same person that we think he is in the
Mhm.
first 2 minutes of the film or so, or whatever that time may be.
Mhm.
Can we talk about that tension a little bit, because there's a real tension in this film between the way we see ourselves or tell ourselves we are, and the way we actually are. I was wondering why you wanted to play with that.
Yeah, I think it's the idea that like I've always described the arts as very bipolar, where like there's days I wake up and I go, I'm the best, I'm the most creative person alive. I'm Scorsese, baby. And then there's days I wake up and I go, why the hell did I quit law school? Uh, where's my next paycheck coming from? And like you need to find your champions to kind of make you like feel like the best sometimes, whether it's like a girlfriend or a partner or friends or a dog or family. And so like I think I've always struggled that way, but I constantly like tell myself, I try to keep like, I'm the best, you're the best. When I'm tired or when I'm like working out, especially doing that, like I constantly am talking to myself, trying to pump myself up to do the hard thing. And I think it's just I this is my self-talk. I didn't really think, like, that's the thing. Sometimes you make a film for you and it's relating to me. I'm not, and then I go, oh, it's universal. People do this to themselves. I'm like, oh shit, I didn't know people say this type of like hyper like ego-driven self-talk, but clearly people do because they relate to it in some capacity. So I think it was just that this idea of just like, what's the biggest version. I do say the craziest shit in my head when I'm trying to pump myself up. I do say like, look at my fucking arms, look at my, like when I'm like working out and I'm trying to just get myself just going. um it's crazy some of the stuff that will just get you there, but then in the end does it's meaningless. It breaks you at the same time. So yeah, I don't know. It was just like it was just interesting to just like see what the extreme version of that could be with a character.
It's weird that, like you say, it's the extreme version, because I also think that it's almost normal. Like you said, like everybody does it to a point, and like we've made that the standard, right? The best.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying we shouldn't strive to be the best. Everything we do, we should strive to be the best. But it is interesting that we hold on to that.
Right.
And I have days like that too, where I get up and I'm like, ah, man, I'm the best at what I do, and it doesn't take long for realities.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's it. That's the standard. Like it's we even when even online people talk about a film, or talk about, they say it's either the best or it's trash.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like
Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah.
Rotten Tomatoes. This number, right?
Yeah.
So I guess here's a question for you: what makes someone or something the best in your mind?
Right. Uh, I think we all have. I think being goal oriented is very important. I think ambition is so strong in our world. The idea of just looking like having an idea and going for it. I think our world's filled with so much people that have zero follow through. Um, and I think having someone that at least tries or pushes for a goal, I want to say is like one of the most attractive qualities in a person, period. Like, and I think that's one thing that makes someone better than someone else, the person that takes the next step
Mm.
as opposed to just saying those words. So I think and that being said, like this film, I don't know if it goes that far. Maybe it does in a way. But I think it's just like it's people that try harder to be the best versions of themselves, or someone who who is just trying to succeed for self-actualization, which
Mm.
is like an unreal concept. But yeah, I've always said I'll never be satisfied as a filmmaker, as an artist, or whatever. I'll never be happy. I'll make something, people, it'll win best picture at the Oscars, probably not, but it'll win, and I'll be on stage and I'll go, wow, this is amazing, I'm the best, and I'll get like next, I'll go to sleep, wake up next day, I'm like, I can never top that. Like
Yeah.
I'll be like, I'm not the best. I'm like, I have to figure, like, I know all the things wrong in that movie. Like I now have to do something bigger than that until I'm the best. So you're always out trying to outperform yourselves. This drive. Drive's the only way to be the best.
Which is interesting too, because I think that's sort of the concept we carry with it is bigger.
Mhm.
It's and even this guy, he's working out, and he's carrying a load that's too heavy for him.
Mhm.
Which that moment made me laugh because it caught me completely off guard. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
but it's like I gotta get bigger, gotta be bigger, gotta do the bigger thing, and gotta it's interesting that way. I find that when we talk about the best, that's often where we land.
Yep.
Um, I want to talk circle back if we can, and talk about parents, because the echoes of his father, if you will, carry this. And I know you've talked about this being very personal, coming out of your own experiences and stuff, but um what do you think that means to wrestle with the echoes of our parents even after they've passed?
Yeah, I think I've always said I want to be the best part of my parents.
Mm,
And I don't think that is going to happen. It's just something I say. I think regardless of how you're grown up, whether you have a great relationship with your parents or a negative or whatever, I think you just end up becoming versions of them in weird
mm,
capacities. Um, and I think this is just one of those situations where this character was so maybe built with a mindset that was so different from his own or was just built into in a certain way that he can't even be himself once his dad's gone, that he has to do the most, the weirdest version of to get back to normalcy, to get back to self-actualization, whatever you want to call it, to get back to being the best. He has to like basically resort to cannibalism, which is not unheard of in a film. I've seen that before, but like it's just like the aftermath of it. I think it's just I think there's things with our parents we just naturally carry. We just can't get rid of. Like now is with my dad. I never thought I looked like my dad till after he passed away. And now I look in the
Mm.
mirror and go, "Oh my God, am I my dad? Am I doing those weird shit?" I started talking to myself so much after my dad died. My dad would talk to himself all the goddamn time, and I'd be like, he'd be watching TV, and I'd hear him in the other room, and I'd be like, "Who are you talking to?" He's like, "Oh, I'm just talking to myself." I'm like, "Stop that! You sound crazy." Now I do it all the goddamn time. I'm at the gym, and people look at me like I'm nuts, and I'm like, "Yeah, I know what I'm doing." I'm like, I'm processing, baby. But like that's the thing. We end up versions of our parents without even meaning to, and it kind of sucks, but sometimes yeah, sometimes it's good. Sometimes there's positives to it. I don't know, but yeah, it's definitely a thing I think we all kind of wrestle with as millennials, especially.
It's wild because I mean, there, no matter how hard you say I'm not going to become my parents, there's
Mhm.
something that we take with them. And like you said, it can be positive and negative, absolutely.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, my dad is still around, but he's getting older, and I'm starting to have those questions. Okay, so what? I'm looking at the pictures, like you are there too, and it is interesting. Not just physically, you sort of absorb pieces of them.
Yeah.
Um, but in this case, with this character, it's quite a negative piece.
Yeah. I think it's the idea that like, I just think it's so funny in my head of like what someone needs to feel strong is to feel belittled.
Mm,
Because in the end, yeah, this guy, you know, doesn't even question it, which was like a thing I always thought was funny. It's just like he brings this urn to the gym, and as almost his plan B,
yeah,
he goes to the washroom, he just does it.
yeah,
Um, and it's funny that was a thing I remember in our because this film was made as part of the Canadian Film Center uh, film program I did last year in the director's lab, and so there was like a lot of mentorship and stuff involved as you make it. And one of the questions was, I don't know, someone brought up the idea of just like, oh, should he not like, smell it first and question it? I said, no, this guy came to the gym with this, like, he had the idea. I'm like, it's more interesting to have a character make a choice, make a definitive choice than to question their choice.
yeah,
That's way more interesting. All of a sudden, the audience goes, "What the fuck is he doing?"
yeah,
And you kind of lock in a little bit more, as opposed to a guy going and making a gross moment out of it. No, it's not a gross moment; it's survival moment. And so, as soon as you make it that, even though it's a negative, ending to it, it just becomes like it becomes like, oh, like I've always said, I like making movies that hit the heart and you go, oh, that's
yeah,
why. Like I like movies like that you go like it hits the heart and then you go, I get it. They're like, oh man, that sucks, but it hits the heart. I get it. So yeah, I don't know. Again, movies is like throwing shit at a wall, and sometimes you don't think it's gonna work, and it works. I never thought this movie would work. And I say that confidently. I don't think half my movies will work, but they do half the time because I go, ah, fuck it, we'll try, and if it works, great. If it sucks, no one will end up watching it anyway. So great.
well, I want to go back just something you said just now, because you refer to this as a survival moment for him,
Right.
and that is a just absolutely bonkers sort of moment of his journey.
Mm,
So much so that I had to sort of watch it twice to be like, wait, did he do what I think he just did?
right.
So in what way in your mind is that a survival moment?
I think he's like he failed. So he failed publicly.
Yeah,
He showed vulnerability, and our I think in a male fucked up world that we live in right now, or in a male toxicity type world, I think as someone who's been a very emotional male, and someone who like I get a lot of panic attacks and anxiety, and I as a kid I cried a lot. My dad would get mad at me. Showing vulnerability was always like not a good thing according to my dad, so it was really
Mm,
hard for me. And in this moment, this character showed vulnerability and felt weak and
mm,
felt belittled to the point where he hid in his car after the service. Um, and uh, and I think at that point he like again he goes to the gym, he drops the weight on himself. That's his giving up moment. That's the point where he's like, no. He's like, I thought I was okay, but no, clearly I'm not even strong enough physically. Mentally, I wasn't strong enough. Now physically, I'm not strong enough. And to survive, he has to do this. It's like, I don't want to be like dark, but like there's another version of the movie where he just like ends it because that's
yeah.
the only version of it because he's so embarrassed because he's so effed up in the head and he's so toxic about being the best that he just ends up going, I can't be the best, well then I'll just end it. But instead he does the most insane version of it to feel like himself again. I in my head, whenever I make a short, I always think of the what's the feature version. The feature version of this film would be like he finds strength through his father, and all of a sudden there's two versions I have. All of a sudden he starts feeding his family this to
Mm.
get them to be as strong as he is, but then they all end up kind of like psychopaths that try to kill him. And then the other version is this: like he starts taking it all the time, so his dad gets in his head, and his dad keeps telling him. And oh, sorry, in the feature version too, he doesn't have a family. He's married, but he doesn't have kids. And so he takes this stuff and he gets strong, and but his dad's in his head, and dad's like, "You're a pussy. You're a pussy. You'll never have kids. You're not anything. You have kids. Legacy, survival. You got nothing." And at the end of the movie, he ends up cutting off his balls.
Whoa. Yeah.
how funny!
Okay.
How funny is that? And so his dad
That-
has nothing to say in the end because he can't even have kids anymore.
yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
not about losing the voice in your head. It's more about like, how do I get back at my dad?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Again, these are extreme
Extreme circumstances.
me going on a tangent of ideas I had when I was like, what are the long term things of this character who I made up and fucked with?
Well, it's funny that you say that because I was wondering that. Like, you mentioned too, this is pseudo sequel in some ways to the short you made before.
Yeah,
But like, I kept wondering what happens to this guy
yeah,
because there's a sense of like a tension between fighting and giving up at the same time with him through the whole. I mean, it's a short film, but
yeah,
you
yeah,
can
yeah,
sense it the whole way.
yeah,
Once he gets up on that microphone, the whole thing blows him up, and it just blows up his character because he's got this toxic voice and he doesn't have the physical or mental strength to back it up. So it is interesting to watch this because I wonder. I mean, you sort of answered this, but in your mind, is there hope for this guy and what it
yeah.
looks?
Well, like, let's be honest. There's only a certain amount of powder that he can keep ingesting. But I think here's my like
This one
interpret.
does.
Yeah, here's my interpretation of this because a lot of my films, the last few films I've made have been about mental health in weird ways, um, and um, and this if you think about it is someone trying to like, for me, after my dad died, after going through, I ghosted the world for like 6 7 months, like to the point where like I just grew a big beard, never left my house, like it got questionable. People were very concerned. Eventually, I fostered a dog who is now my life partner, and that got me back to normal and antidepressants and therapy. Now I'll say, going on antidepressants were very handy for me and definitely helped me think about the emotional stuff while still being like not destroying me. And I think there's something to be said by this powder kind of, very very loosely, this powder, this guy being able to like go to that place that makes him feel strong again or be himself again. And I'm not saying crematory whatever that powder should be used
Yeah.
as that, But I think that, there's some version of this where I kind of thought that where this was like someone finding strength through ingesting something.
Mm.
I met it, I'm very open to my mental health at this point. Like I was just like, wow, this is really helping me. I did not think this would like really coat my like emotions to the point where I can like go outside again and be myself and lift weights again. But it has. And I think that's maybe the version of this guy. He's back to normal, baby. He's gonna be his shitty self.
Yeah, you know what is the I hear what you're saying, like the and I think that's really powerful in some ways, but just this idea that what the next step, I mean, what does healing look like for him? And
Mhm.
hopefully, you know, once he's finished ingesting the ashes, if you will, but it's a wild film. I honestly, Ian, it's so much fun. And yet
But
it's really fun. It's, like I said, it's a really interesting tension. It's funny and dark, but it's not necessarily darkly funny. Like it's a really
right.
interesting mix. I really appreciated that, and honestly, Ian, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for chatting with
Yeah.
me.
Oh, I'm glad. Honestly, I'm glad people like I said, I did not expect it. And you do something within the constraints of a program where they give you kind of limitations and rules, and they have basically 2 days of shooting, and certain scenarios you have to kind of like. So I wrote a script that was also limiting the fact of like, okay, four locations at best, and that's the thing. I was like, okay, story first. In the end,
Yeah.
it worked. I'm happy to be at TIFF. It's gonna be great.
Congratulations, honestly, it's exciting, and you're the best.
Thank
Uh,
you. Thank you so much, Steve. I needed that.
no, honestly, I appreciate it. Thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks, man.